guys, welcome back. This is the GXXCC Hater, and today we're going to learn about the patch screen. Alright, that was a little chiptune salsa for you. Alright, we got our default Sawtooth right here. And now, we learned about the synth in the last 5 episodes. This episode, like I said in the last one, we're going to learn about the patch screen. Excuse me. So, let's begin on the patch screen. This is the patch screen here. We use this to add effects to our sound. You have 6 knobs over here, and each knob has a output. And then you have your frequency knob. It's kind of it changes the speed of your effect. You have your sync switch, which by default it's off, which has its own speed, but when turned on it goes with the beats per minute. Great for sticking to your beat. And then you have 6 inputs. So basically you take a wire from one of these outputs and you input into one of these inputs. You can't take another wire and put it on top. Same thing with the bottom. It's either bottom to top or top to bottom. That's how it is. Okay, so let's begin with the first knob. This is the Vco Pitch in, and that just controls the pitch of your sound. It controls the pitch of both your VCOs right here. So we're just going to use the first one. So you can hear it's a regular sound. As soon as I connect it to one of these and add a little bit to the left or right, all these knobs are exactly the same as the EGINT knob, where you have the pluses and the subtract. So it's just either direction you want to do the effect. So you got forward and backwards. That's for every knob. Okay, so you got your regular sound here for the VCO pitch. And as I add more over here, you can hear the sound vibrating. We'll get more into this in a little bit. I'm just explaining what each knob does. So you can see the pitch is affected. That affects the pitch. Now these 2 knobs over here are exactly the same as the VCO, except that now you can control separately the VCO1 and the VCO2. So with both, I'm going to use a square wave. You can see both are controlled. But if I put this into the VCO1 pitch in only, you can see that only the VCO1 is controlled and the VCO2 is untouched. And if I go to the VCO2, the VCO2 is affected and the VCO1 is untouched. So that's basically the 3 knobs over here. This controls the pitch on both oscillators, and these control the pitch separately. The first oscillator on this knob and the second oscillator on that knob. That's what it basically does. Now, the 4th knob is the PWM, the pulse wave modulation. That's the VCO1, that's the square wave here, and this knob over here. So, as you can hear with the square wave, so you hear that effect. If I put it here, you see this knob is basically affecting the VCO1 PW knob. That's what this knob does. So wherever you connect to it, it will mess with this knob right over here. I think you can see it too, right? Oh, it does not move. I guess for the chaos it does. So that's what basically this is. This is not in the DS10, but there's a workaround to get the same effect, but I'll come back to that another time. Okay, the cutoff, simple. You know what gets affected? This knob right over here. So if I do this, so the cutoff gets affected. Simple as that. This knob affects this knob right over here. And the VCA in, this basically affects the VCA level knob right here. So if I put it here, and I change it here, you're going to hear the volume get affected. Okay, so that's it. There you go. These three knobs affect the VCO. This is for both VCOs. This is for VCO 1, VCO 2. That affects all the pitches. This affects the pulse wave modulation of the VCO 1. This affects the cutoff, and this affects the level. That's all these knobs do. Now, the most understanding part is understanding these waves. And just try to look at it by the shape. Here you have your triangle wave here, your sawtooth, your square, your sample and hold, your EG, and your VCO2. So your triangle wave, as you can see the shape, it goes, you can see like a little hill going up and down. So what's going on, I'm going to mimic this on the keyboard for a little bit of Porta. Now, I'm going to go back to the VCO pitching. As you remember, the VCO pitching, like I said, controls the pitch of the sound. So I'm going to put this in here, and when there's nothing applied, you have your regular sound. When I apply a little bit of this pitching into the triangle wave, you can hear the sound going back and forth. To make it easier on the ears so you can understand more, I'm going to go here and add another note and control the gate from there, and then go back to the patch screen. Now you can hear a smooth transition. What's going on is that the sound is going back and forth, kind of like a hill. So if I went on the keyboard and did the same thing, well, I'm going to do the sequencer because that's the direction. I go up and down. So that's what the triangle wave is. It does what you see in the shape. It's like a going up and down a hill. As you add more to this knob, the pitch goes higher. And backwards if you put it the other way. So you saw the triangle wave makes like a smooth transition from back and forth to whatever it is. If I do the same with the well, I'm going to do the same here. VCO 1 into the triangle wave. I mean VCO, that's both of them. Then VCO 1. Remember, the VCO 1 only gets affected. VCO 2. That only gets affected. Now, the pulse wave modulation. So you can see how smoothly it goes back and forth through the values. As you can hear, this is a great technique for making SID music, like in C64. So this is a technique I use for my SID chip music. We will get to that in the future. I'll talk about that later. All right, now we got the cutoff with the triangle wave. Smooth transition, and then you have the VCA in with the volume. So this is what the triangle wave does. It makes a smooth transition from back and forth of the value of whatever you're connected to. That's what the triangle wave does. Now this is the Sawtooth. The Sawtooth is similar to the triangle wave, except as you can see here, you're going down a hill and at the edge is just a straight line. So instead of a smooth transition, it's basically just going down one direction and then it resets itself. So as you can hear with the Vco pitch, so you see what's going on? It's like if I go on the sequencer and I start from here and go down. Oh, wait, let me turn it off. Okay. And if I go down, but instead of going back up, I lift my pen off and go back here on top. So instead of back and forth, like a triangle wave, I'm just going in one direction and then resetting it back. So that's what a Sawtooth does. So let's try it out with the pitch. And VCO1 with the Sawtooth. And VCO2 with the Sawtooth. Then PWN with the Sawtooth. And then cut off. And then the VCA in with the Sawtooth. So that's what basically the Sawtooth is. Instead of a smooth transition like the triangle wave, the Sawtooth is a sweeping down or sweeping up depending what direction, and then resetting itself and starting all over again. So that's what the Sawtooth does. Now the square wave, as you can see, it's a hard shape. You have a platform on top and a platform on the bottom. It's like an on and off switch. So if I go to the pitch here, well actually, let's start with the VCA in so you can understand. It's an on and off switch. So if I put it in here, So you can see on, off, on and off. So it's like if I go to the sequencer and I just start from here, and instead of sliding down or going back and forth. Oh, 1 second. Let me turn it off. Okay. So instead of me going back and forth or sliding down, I'm basically just hopping back and forth. So if I do the square wave on the pitch, as you can hear, you can use this for ARPs. Two note ARPs. That's what it's good for. You know, you can make a couple of effects for chip music, or I also use it to compress some instruments when I want 2 notes at once, especially for my orc hits. But I'll get more into that later. So you got your square wave. Then with the pitch, Vco pitch in. And then the VCO2. And then the PWM. And then the cutoff. And remember the VC again. So that's what the square wave is. It's just a on and off switch. Now the SNH is sample and hold. It does a lot of things, but on a real MS-10 you can press more than 1 key at once. So to sum this up, I just call it random. That's all it is. It's random. It gives you random values. So we're going to put it here, and you're going to hear it. We're going to press play. See, it's random, just random notes. So the higher the value, the more of the range of random notes you're gonna get. That's it. That's all it is. It's a random setting. And with the VCO1 into it. And then the VCO2. Then the PWM. Cut off. And then the VC again. So that's pretty much it for that. It's just a random sample and hold. The last two are special. They don't get affected by the frequency, which is great. So this one's the EG. Very simple. The EG is right here, like I talked about before. It just adds an attack, decay, and sustain release envelope to your effect. Even though most of these you can do already without it. So, but let's just go through it. So if I hooked up the pitch into the EG, it will get controlled by this. Remember I put the attack? I'm gonna turn the gate off so you can hear it. Let's put a little more in there. For a release. Oh yeah, there's no release because the gate is off. So that's with the VCO, and then VCO 1 into the EG. Now that's pretty cool. You can affect one note and then the other note is not affected, giving some really cool effects. And then the VCO 2. And then the PWM. Right. This can also give some cool effects for SID chip music as well. So I have the VCO1 PWM into the EG, and the attack is affecting the sound. Cut off. Not really, you know, it does the same thing as if the EGINT was here too. And then the VCA in, which you don't really need it. I mean, like, it's right here, so it would kind of really does the same thing. So that's pretty much actually, I forgot. The cool thing about having the VCA in and the EG, if you need an extra boost in your sound and it sounds too low, just by connecting this to the EG and just putting it up will make it louder. So it's great if you need to make your sound louder. If it's not, I use it for the kick drums a lot. So that's what's really good about the VCA into the EG. It kind of just works like an extra volume knob to get more volume if it's not loud enough and you're already using the max volume in the mixer. Okay. Now, the VCO 2. Simple explanation, whatever you connect here, it will take form of the waveform here. It'll take shape of the waveform that's here. So if I connect the pitch to the VCO2, you can see the sound takes, when I change here, the sound gets affected. Now it doesn't really sound too great, but I'm gonna go through all this. Oh, I put the VCO2 into itself. So look at that. And the PWM. And the cutoff. Oh. And the VCA in. Now, it can make some interesting effects, but the most important effect that I use this for is that if you, it says in the manual as well too, and they just add it in, but you could do it in the DS10 as well. If you plug the VCO1 into the VCO2, it does frequency modulation. This is what you can use to make to do the FM instruments. You know, the ones you hear in arcade games or Sega Genesis music, or even the old school 80s soundtracks, and even bass. So this becomes a modulation wheel. This affects the harmonies. That's a familiar bell sound to you. It's awesome. Just that alone expands your whole sound library. So I will get more into that later when we can make a lot of FM sounds. So that's what the best use of the VCO2 is for here. You can use it for other things, but I mostly use that for my FM sounds. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, if the switch here, the sync switch, let's get some drums here. So when I turn on, you can see it gets into sync. And when I turn it off, it doesn't really get into sync with the beat. So that's what the sync switch does. Any effect, it will sync with the beat. Very useful. Unless you're doing a certain effect and you want to fully control it, then you got to turn the sync off. And while this, there's actually an important rule, and I'll get back to it again, but when the BPM is on, the effect resets on every beat. If the sync is off, the effect will not reset. It will carry on. As long as it's the same effect, it will carry on every pattern. That's an important note, but I'll remind you about that later. So this is pretty much it. As you remember, I told you what each of these knobs do. These three affect the oscillators, the VCOs. This affects the VCO1 pulse wave modulation. This affects the cutoff. This affects the level. This is the speed, of how fast you want the effect to be. As you remember, the triangle wave is a smooth transition. The sawtooth wave is a transition that goes in one direction and resets itself. The square wave is like an on and off switch. The sample and hold is just random. The EG hooks any effect to your envelope generator section, and the VCO2 hooks up and takes form of the waveform of the VCO2. That's pretty much it. So, thanks for watching. I hope you learn a lot. If you have any questions, don't forget to, if you have any questions, you can just type them below. I'll answer them as soon as possible. And don't forget to subscribe and check out my SoundCloud. And also check out my website, drexegger.com, for some more tips. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.